Okay, in this video module, we're going to be talking about entities. Obviously, entities play a large role in the game because they're pretty much everything that you can add into your level, be it a player start, a light, a monster, a weapon, or whatever. And Logan's going to walk through not only adding them in, he's going to show you where we can get some of the most important things or key elements for a game, such as the weapons, the ammo, health, armor, etc., even some monsters. From there, we're going to talk about positioning the entities, how to move them around through just normal movement or nudging, and also rotating, because rotating is kind of special. And then after that, we'll take a look at setting some properties, and we'll see if we can do something interesting with a few zombies. And then finally from there, we'll take a look at adding static models into our level. So Logan, with that, let's take a look at how we add some entities. Let's do some weapons.
Okay, so entities are added into a level by right-clicking in an orthographic view. And as soon as you right-click, you get this big long list of stuff that starts up with a few special cases where you can do certain things or add certain things. But below that is where you get into the actual entity categories. Now, a lot of these categories hold the individual entities themselves. There's just a handful of them that reside by themselves. Like light isn't a category. It is an actual light entity. So some stuff that we'd probably want to be able to add would be like, well, items where we'd have health and armor. We've got, if we scroll down a little bit, we've got weapons. There it is.
Yeah, let's go and add a weapon.
So let's grab a weapon, shotgun. And with this entity added, let me move forward in the camera view a little bit. We've got, there's the shotgun, and you can just barely see it's drawing the model as well as a bounding box around it. And in the top view, it's currently drawing as a mesh, so we can see that as a shotgun. It's been added. To move an entity is pretty much the same as a brush. With it selected, you simply click drag it, and you can move it wherever you want in the level. Now, rotating an entity is a little bit different.
Before we do rotating, how about nudging?
Nudging, well, as a finer movement ability, you can hold Alt and use the arrow keys to nudge an entity into place, which is kind of nice because if it's an entity that isn't grid dependent, you can get it placed with finer accuracy than if it was on the grid.
Yeah, so nudging, of course, can be very helpful.
So that's how we place, that's how we move, that's how we nudge. Now we need to take a look at rotating. We can't use the brush style rotations where we would grab a 90 degree or free brush rotation. We actually have to go and edit one of its properties in order to be able to rotate it. To do this, we're going to switch over to the Entity tab, and you can see we have this square of buttons set up. And what this is actually going to do is add an angle property to the entity and set it to whatever we clicked on. So say we wanted to add a 45 degree angle, we could just click that button. And now we've got the shotgun angled at a 45 degree angle. And we can use the buttons to switch it to wherever. We can also go in and set this ourselves. You'll notice we can't actually see the key and value pairs just because this window is so small. So I guess we could just drag this up temporarily so we can see the whole thing. So we see that we have this angle that's been added, and as we click on these, it changes to that angle. But if we wanted a more specific angle, we could always type that in ourselves. So there, now we have a kind of funny non-standard angle, but you can still do it. There's two special values for angle, -1 and -2, which will allow you to point an entity up or down. So let me actually switch to...
Might be easier over in your, that view too, that'll work.
So if we zoom up in it, point the... Well, see, the problem is the way that this entity is currently looking. We can see this a little bit better with maybe some other entities.
Actually, what I was thinking is go over into your your camera view and zoom up on it.
So if we move up to with the view selected, move up, move around, maybe move up some, look down. So we can kind of see it. So move up and down, but that's kind of flipping it on depending on the way it's looking.
Yeah, we almost need to put a monster or something in there.
Yeah, to be able to show. As a matter of fact, if we wanted to grab a monster, we could just right-click back over in a top view. Then grab monster, and let's add maybe monster zombie jumpsuit. So I've got a zombie pointing down because that's our current angle. So instead of, you also notice up and down is directly that way, not in relation to any other angle. Because remember, this is all just one angle property. So if we wanted to point him forward again, we could use something like 90, 45, or maybe 30 to put him looking back where he was, or 360. So we've got simple rotation, pointing and angling, which is basically just adjusting the angle value. We've added a monster, we've added a shotgun. Well, actually, technically,
we switched our shotgun to a monster.
To a monster. That's which you need to be aware of. If you have an entity selected and you add another entity with it selected, it basically replaces it. There are special cases where if an entity uses a brush, like a trigger, it will actually retain the shape of the brush you replaced. But that gets into when you need to actually add triggers and stuff. For general entities that are just a game object or monster, it's going to replace whatever you added because it's not brush dependent. It's its own entity. So with that now, let's see if you want to take a look at adding some other in-game items.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and deselect that. Let's throw a weapon back in, then let's throw some ammo for that weapon in.
So let's grab another shotgun.
So then let's shotgun.
Shotgun ammo. So I'll deselect that, and I'll go all the way back up to the top where we have ammo, and I'll add ammo, shells, nice large box of shells. So set some shells next to the shotgun, and I'm also going to start moving these so that they're directly on the floor instead of floating in midair. So we have shotgun maybe. Let's give it lots of shells. Let's use the space bar to clone one of those boxes of shells, move it over. So we've got some weapons added. Now let's add
maybe some health and armor.
Okay. So on the other side of the room, I'll right click and go down to item, and we'll add a medkit. Move that over a little bit, and next to it we'll add, also under item, some armor. So armor security. Move that down, and then line it up to the floor. Same for the health. Rest it on, actually on the floor.
Alright, so if we went into game right now.
So if we were to save the map, and then load this by doing map, room 3.
Pile of bodies.
There, multiple entities named Shotgun 1. This is a common problem that can happen, especially adding your first one, then deleting it, or swapping it out for something else. It's saying that there's multiple items named Weapon Shotgun 1. What actually happened is the way we replaced that, we didn't actually delete the shotgun. So internally it still thinks that there's something named Shotgun 1, or at least it's reserving the name, Weapon Shotgun 1, and it's not going to allow any other entity to use this name. We can quickly correct this by going back into the map, selecting the shotgun itself, going back over to the Entities tab, and then we have the name property. Well, let's call it Shotgun 2. Hit enter, save the map, back into game, try loading the map again. And there we go. We have a zombie, check. Have shotgun, some shells, check. And we have health and armor.
So see if we can get zombie to respond and grab shotgun. Hit him on the back of the head. Yes, he responds.
Okay.
Now, grab his present. There you go. And deliver.
Flat. Oh, that works pretty well.
Yeah, that worked really well.
We have a health pack that we don't need, and we have armor that we can pick up. So, all of our items and stuff is working.
Okay, so cool. Now that we've taken a look at how to add entities and where some of the more common ones you're going to want to add for a game is going to be, let's take a look at how we can adjust entity properties. I mean, I know you just adjusted some right there by adjusting the name, but let's see if we can make this a little bit more interesting. How about let's go in and add a second, or just duplicate the one zombie, and let's see if we can make a zombie attack another zombie.
Okay, so we'll take the first zombie, select it, clone it with the spacebar, and then move it over to the side some, and maybe face him off in that direction so he's looking away from everyone else. Now, let's take note of one property.
Well, first of all, just let's look at properties in general.
So we have this one named Monster Jumpsuit 1, and our original actually inherited. That's the problem. We managed to name that one zombie.
Right. Well, that was its name. We just basically.
So I could always say something like Zombie 1 or something. Zombie 1.
And let me go ahead and add this real quick, Logan. For those of you guys that are just completely new to working with any type of game engine, what is a property? Okay. Well, when you have an object usually has a bunch of properties, and those properties define various characteristics about that object. Be it the name, be it the angle that it's rotated at, be it a color, whatever it may be. It's just a simple property of the object, so something that's defining some sort of object characteristic.
Yes, and in Doom 3, properties are accessed through key-value pairs. That's why we have key and val here.
Right.
And you also get, if you're looking through any given entity, you're in almost all cases given a list of what you have access to. So usage, depending on the entity itself, it might actually have a full description of what the entity is and what it does. And then below that, you have possible keys for properties that you can add and what their values are, what they'll do. If it doesn't say what the value should be, it probably means that it's just a 1 or 0 style value, which means no damage. Set no damage to 1 means you can't damage the zombie.
Ooh, that'd be bad.
Yeah, no. So we've got quite a list here, especially for something complicated like a monster with all that it can do. So I mean, that's always a good reference when you're just starting out and getting used to working with various entities. And back on the key and value pairs, you notice that not everything is immediately active. In order to access a property, you actually have to add the key for that property to be able to set its value. Also, once you've set certain properties, like if we were to set no damage, also a quick shortcut is if you want to start typing on that key, double click on any of these, and it'll fill in the key for what you just double clicked on, and then you can set a value. So if we were to say set no damage to 1, we actually create this key by hitting enter. So now we have the no damage key, its value 1, and say we didn't want that now. We want to completely get rid of this entire key. Well, we can go back down here with it selected and hit this little X button, and that'll remove that key value pair. So with that now, let's go back and see if we can finish off this zombie attack scenario.
Yeah.
So we've got Zombie 1 over here, which I guess I didn't even really need to name. We could have left him named Shotgun and it still would have worked. But basically what we want to do is have this zombie attack the second zombie. So we need to have a certain property set up. If you dig through here, eventually you'll find one value called enemy, but I kind of don't want to go through the list, so I'll just type it out. Enemy, and the value needs to be the name of what its enemy should be, which is going to be monster, zombie, jumpsuit, whatever. Actually, we can go and see that if we select it and grab its name. You can see monster, zombie, jumpsuit 1. Now here's an interesting thing about the way this refreshes, or doesn't always refresh immediately when you select another entity. If we were to hit escape, select just this guy, it hasn't actually swapped or refreshed these boxes yet, which means that we could change, instead of name, we could put it to enemy, and instead of monsters, zombie, well actually that's correct, because we were just looking at that guy's name, so all we have to do is say enemy is going to be whatever we had over here, which is the correct one. We'll hit enter to create that, and now we have set the enemy for this zombie. So if we were to save the map now and test it, let's see what that zombie does.
So there he goes.
And there he goes.
He's off to attack.
Whack.
Beating. Beating.
Slap.
Oh, the other one has now seen
spun
you.
him around, so now he's chasing me. Help me, you're
the one's going to chase while the other one continues to try to... Alright, cool. If we can do that, let's see if we can have two zombies attack one another.
Okay. So,
zombie fest.
Quit out of that. So we set up an enemy for this guy. Now we need to go to the other zombie and set his enemy to just... Remember, I renamed that Zombie 1. So we'll take the zombie part, leave that, erase the monster part. So this guy's enemy is going to be Zombie 1, so we'll hit enter, save the map, and see what it thinks. Real quick before I get killed, I'll reload the map.
So now the two should fight one another. Here we go, and the zombie fight is off, yes. Oh! Oh, no fair, no fair. Oh, look at that slap, that was absolutely... Oh, no.
Now the great thing is with that, they've already been fighting, so it doesn't take anything to kill the last zombie.
That was great.
So now we've seen setting up some items, setting up monsters, editing their properties. Now, just because there's the list of all available properties, it's not necessarily every single thing you can possibly set on an entity. There are some cases where there might be a property that isn't listed. Let's see.
Example, health.
So yeah, on a monster entity, health isn't explicitly listed, but it can be set. If I go to the first zombie, and I add a key called health, and set it to 1, health of 1. Let's save and see what happens there.
Breathe on it, it dies. Oh, since they're still fighting, this is going to be bad for him.
Yep.
Here
this won't be very long.
Whack.
Or if I load it again, I can grab just that first one. Now, for once, it should actually be easy to kill something with just this.
Quickly, get over there, run, pop.
And then I'm left with just the one zombie.
Excellent. Okay, so really that does it. Basically, we've taken a look at how we can add entities into the level, what entities are, where we can find common entities that we're going to use in making a game, such as weapons, health, etc. And then we talked about the properties of an entity and how to go in and take a look at the list of properties that are there for adjusting, how to go and add a key and value property in and adjust them. And then we did some fancy stuff like making one zombie attack another, and then making the two fight, and then going back and showing you an undocumented parameter, the health one, adding that property in, setting it to 1, and having the poor zombie die right away. So again, just an introduction to entities. That's really all there is to adding an entity in. But of course, as we dive deeper and deeper into the world of editing Doom 3 type maps, we're going to be using more and more entities to do some interesting things. So with that, that's going to wrap up this level. Thanks a lot.